Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Please remember to like and subscribe. Aurora Brown, the submissive, quiet daughter who never yearned for attention, brushed the cameras aside as though they didn't exist. No gesture of greeting, no look over the shoulder. Her steps were deliberate, heavy, and befitted someone who had left for good. Robyn lay on the ground behind her, literally hunched over in a corner, holding onto one of Aurora's sweaters, as if it were the only thing keeping her grounded. Tears tore through her, the type that bends a person in half. The calm peacemaker was not like this. In real time, fans recognized this as a mother's breakdown. Where had Kody gone? He wasn't touching his daughter's shoulder, not with a reassuring word for his wife. He wasn't there. You realize then that this wasn't just another embarrassing sister-wife incident. The irrevocable divide was this one. As a fan like myself, I had seen the warning signs, partiality, bitterness, hush betrayals, and promises that were made and then broken for years. However, this was distinct. It wasn't just a daughter leaving a room when Aurora quietly left. The family foundation had a fissure that had been splintering ever since Robyn first appeared. You're wrong if you believe this was unexpected. Seasons ago, under fake smiles, holiday dinners, and Kody's grandiose lectures about being one, the seeds were sown. Not only did they shatter the earth when they finally blossomed, but they also showed us that everything we believed to be true about them was false. Prior to breaking down I want you to consider the whole story, the land deals, the partiality, and the public silence. At what point does a family stop being a family? For the Browns, the answer came slowly at first, then suddenly. It was a kind of scenario where you start to lose your breath, the walkout, the kind that doesn't require music, voiceover, or even language to be a punch to the gut. Once the quiet daughter who melted into the background, Aurora Brown pushed past the cameras without a glance. No wave, no goodbye. Just an unreadable face and a heavy, resolute gait that seemed to echo through the corridor. Behind her, Robyn lay on the floor, her body coiled around one of Aurora's sweaters, as if it were her only remaining lifeline, not sitting, falling. Her tears lacked grace. She was shaken from the inside out by their raw, jagged edges. Robyn had previously shown us emotion. She had a reputation for weeping, but this was different. Kody was nowhere to be seen, and the mother was unraveling, never touching his daughter's shoulder, not a word of comfort to his spouse. Nothing but quiet, the kind of silence that lets you know that a family gathering or a "we're going to work out" speech wasn't going to solve this. It was this. We have been sold an image, a united front, and a multiple marriage success tale that has managed to withstand financial hardship, jealousy, and the daily chaos of a large blended family for over 10 years. In actuality, however, that image had been deteriorating for years. You may notice it if you listen carefully enough. The uneven attention of a father, wives withdrawing into their personal nooks, ambitions built on barren, uncultivated countryside. Furthermore, Aurora's departure was not a coincidence. It wasn't shocking. It was the outcome of years of quiet fissures that were permitted to widen until the foundation as a whole collapsed. Fans who had recognized the warning signs, like me, might be found. A little modification to screen time, the way Kody's calendar was displayed, to center on Robyn's offspring, the growing emotional gap between him and his former spouse's children. The terrain, the land was hailed as a great equalizer, but it is now progressively turning into a negotiable asset, something that is offered but never provided. Nevertheless, the Browns had managed to maintain the machine's functionality. Family get-togethers and group dinners were filmed to fill in the blanks. Aurora's silent departure up until this point hasn't just pulled back the curtain. It has sent it tumbling down. Additionally, not just tension was seen. It was not another altercation. It was the clearest sign yet that the Brown family we all believed to be ours was no longer there. You haven't been listening if you think this happened suddenly. Yesterday's seeds were sown in love affairs that cost someone else money years ago. Until the first brick was never built, the dreams never really took off. In conversations when words were spoken but not truly heard, and to observe how everything turned out, to actually look at why Aurora departed that day, we must go back to the beginning of the cracks, the seeds of collapse. to explain the quiet in that corridor. The fact that Aurora didn't look back when she referred to her mother's tears. You must return, not a couple of months. Years, not a season. The Browns had, on the surface, always been a picture of unity. Kody's motto, wives, one family, all equal, was his catchphrase. He characterized their polygamous union in interviews as a well-functioning machine of love and equality. But soon after, the imbalance in reality started to show. Robyn joined in on the action. Her entrance was portrayed as the missing piece of their family's puzzle, a new love story or fairy tale. Even how the show structured her initial moments, warm light, loving music showed this was not another wife. These were Meri, Janelle, Christine, and the wife. They made an effort. For the camera, they grinned. They accepted her as a member of their group, but they sensed the dynamism before the general audience did. Robyn and her children began to get more of Kody's time, energy, and presence. In addition to holidays, everyday group conversations that once involved everyone suddenly felt formal, as if the play of oneness needed to be read aloud to keep the illusion going. Christine tried to talk about feeling invisible, but her words just fell apart. Janelle's ridiculous, practical advice was dismissed. If it didn't fall within. Following the catfishing scandal, Meri was kept at a distance from Kody's and increasingly Robyn's view. Her attempts to reintegrate weren't rebuffed. It hurt even more that they were just disregarded. Coyote Pass came next. Everyone is united in their dream by Kody sweeping. Each wife owned a home on the same property, close enough to join the family for dinner, but far enough away to give them room, a fresh start, and the certainty that despite their differences, the Browns would have a future together. It sounded perfect on paper, but that vision evolved year after year. In intention, not in development. There were delays. Deadlines disappeared, plans changed, but the message remained constant. All we need is more time. In the meantime, nothing happened. The land became more of a talking point and less a shared goal. When harmony was on the line, Kody could pull out this prop. Standing on her empty lot, Christine broke down in tears as she admitted that she no longer could see living there. Janelle tried to figure out the money while standing there with a calculator, only to be met with yet another setback in the plan. Meri chewing her time and holding on to hope for a future she must have known deep down would never come. And throughout it all, Robyn's family stayed steady, alone, and safe in the storms that pounded everyone else's. The writing was on the wall by the time the wives started to back off. There was no lagging in the Coyotes' previous dream. As it deteriorated, the family's ties of allegiance were slowly but surely breaking down. It was not a matter of whether collapse would happen. When was it? Promise or jail for Coyote Pass? From the moment Kody set foot on that desolate stretch of land, Coyote Pass was promoted as the answer to every argument, every jealousy, and every hidden resentment. Although each wife would live in a separate home, they would be close enough to each other for Sunday get-togethers and shared holidays. The kids could run about between houses. Grandchildren would be a short stroll from everyone who looked after them. At first, it was hope rather than land. Christine grinned for the cameras when she initially arrived at her designated lot. Her eyes, however, spoke a different message. Later, she admitted that she couldn't see herself there. Not on the ground. Not in a home that wasn't built yet. Not when she already felt empty in her marriage to Kody. Janelle rationally attacked it the same way she handled everything else. She posed the challenging queries. What is the price of this? How are we going to pay for it? When will we begin construction? However, she was met with more time, more delays, and more excuses every time she demanded clarity. And Meri silently clung to the dream. Despite the passing of years, not a single foundation was laid. The ground started to represent what was not happening rather than what might be. She waited too long. Meanwhile, the cameras kept returning to the big overhead. Images of Coyote Pass, the pristine, uninhabited area that lies beneath a wide Arizona horizon. It was supposed to be positive. Instead, it was a tangible reminder to far too many spectators that coherence was now just a talking point. The dream slowed. After that, it froze. Then it grew dimmer. No longer did Coyote Pass feel like a boon. It seemed like a trap, a tool for Kody to use in negotiations, a project that only he could star the family would simply comply with his directives. It was a persistent, bothersome question for the other women. Were they caught in a promise that never materialized, or were they waiting for their future? Have to be completed? When Christine did ultimately decide what she would do with her portion of property, it had nothing to do with money. It was a flight of fancy. And one of the most iconic moments of the collapse itself will be triggered by what she did next. The day Christine made her move was one of the breaking points. There were no fireworks included, no yelling contest. She was not photographed in mid-tier. It was written with a signature. For $10, it was on sale. Kody and Robyn received her share of the Coyote Pass. $10 for a bit of. The family's joint future was a land that had been accumulated throughout the years. It wasn't about the money, though, as anyone who knew Christine understood. It was a declaration, a hard, frigid severing of the bond that bound her to Kody's dominance and vision. In a later confessional, Kody snarled, his jaw clenched, when he realized that the rage in his eyes said more than his words could ever convey. She's making a mistake. However, he had already lost her. Prior to that signature, she had lived in another emotional plane, where his assurances were irrelevant. Janelle reached her breaking point in a different way. It wasn't an over-the-top gesture. It was a collision of inflexible barriers with the glacial speed of reason. The figures had never balanced despite her repeated attempts at the math. On Coyote Pass, every conversation about moving forward wound up returning to the same grounds of contention, which miraculously disappeared if it was for Robyn's benefit. In private, Janelle revealed what she didn't want to say. I'll lose everything I've worked for if I wait. Waiting was suddenly out of the question. Then Meri, more than any of them, her loyalty had been called into question. Disgrace in public. Following the catfishing, she experienced years of emotional distance from Kody and the silent suffering of being excluded from her own marriage. She waited for things to get better, thinking that the family would be saved if she only persevered. However, the salvage never happened. Additionally, in one of, she finally said, Kody doesn't view us as married. For Christine, it was a sale. For Janelle, it was a choice. For Meri, it was a reality she could no longer ignore. 3 different roads, one common reality. And as each of the wives moved away, Kody's world grew smaller until only Robyn remained standing alongside him. But even that partnership, strong though it had seemed, was soon to be tried in ways they could hardly have imagined. This was one of the most heartbreaking parts of her sister wife's experience. Predicted, Aurora fades from the frame. It did not occur overnight. Aurora did not shut the door on the cameras, as Christine had shut it on Coyote Pass. She just faded at first, just slowly a missed family dinner here. A euphemistic excuse there. She was still present. Technically, you could spot her in the distance of a scene. Hair back, arms crossed, eyes elsewhere. Then the gaps between her appearances became wider. When she did appear, she felt ethereal, as if she stood in the room but was already on her way out the door. Fans. The tension in the Brown household was harder to ignore, as Robyn tried to keep her daughter involved, pleading that things could still be resolved, while Kody seemed almost aloof, as if avoiding the truth would make it non-existent. Social media was ablaze with rumors, some attributing it to normal teenage independence, while others gossiped about a split, not just between her and Kody, but between Aurora and the idea of the family in general. By the time the season's mid-finale aired, viewers in Key Night noticed something frightening. Aurora wasn't just absent from group scenes. She had been edited out. Conversations were cut short. Shots were cropped tighter. And a family photo was abruptly swapped out on the wall, as if she had been silently erased before she even left. Robyn's anxiety turned to panic, and her private conversations with Aurora grew longer and more tearful, grew more abrupt, and then one day there were no answers at all. The walkout was inevitable by then, and we just didn't know when or how bad it would be for the final 2 people who were still holding out the dream. The day of the walkout arrived quietly, almost innocently, with no lights warning us, no dramatic build-up on camera, just a sense that something had changed in the atmosphere. Aurora passed cameras as if they didn't exist, and her gait was slow, deliberate, and last. She was a polite, eager to please girl from past seasons, but in her place was someone who had decided to leave behind a family that had long since broken up. Behind her, Robyn collapsed to the ground, and the cameras captured every moment as she held Aurora's sweater close to her chest, gasping and shaking like a broken mother in real time. Her tears weren't for the audience. They were unfiltered, raw grief for a daughter who had silently left the room and the story itself. And when Kody did show up, his reaction was defensive, not comforting. Shouts were heard, doors were closed, and he shifted the blame elsewhere, accusing Robyn of failing to take necessary action and avoiding the realization that his choices had contributed to this break. For the audience, it was a revelation. This was not conflict, tension, or reality. It was TV melodrama. This was a family on the brink of irreparable breakdown that was shown live on television. The silence in the house was oppressive. There were no excuses or explanations, just missing people. And the lingering ghost of what had once been a peaceful home. The Browns' public image, which had been meticulously maintained for over 10 years, was completely destroyed. The facade of harmony was blown apart, and the truth came to light. Years of unspoken anger, preferential treatment, and neglect had finally come back to haunt them. Robyn tried to patch up what was left, pleading and desperate, but it was too late. Aurora's silence had already screamed louder than words ever could have. Coyote Pass, vacant houses, vacant lots, and vacant land. A beaming promise, now a desolate reminder. The bird's eye views captured it all perfectly. Vacant lots, desolate streets, incomplete foundations, and shut blinds looking back at the sky. The hope of a completed family had become a ghost town. The cul-de-sac, which was once full of laughter and commotion, was now filled with silence. Driveways were vacant. The rooms that once filled with Sunday dinners, holiday meals, and family milestones were now mere remnants of what might have been. Aurora's last walkout. The family was in ruins because of Robyn's frantic sobbing and Kody's defensiveness. Christine, Janelle, and Meri had all split up in their own ways, leaving just Kody and Robyn, the surviving couple in a family that had once been built on equal partnerships and shared dreams. But even that pair wasn't immune to Pfizer's. Robyn's once consistent energy now showed signs of exhaustion, uncertainty, and the realization that she couldn't handle the illusion of family alone. For their fans, it was clear that the Browns were not only disintegrating, but that the scales of love, attention, and respect had been lost for years. The breakup had come gradually, irrevocably, and now irrevocably. The empty houses, the barren ground, and the absence of children all spoke to the same thing. A plural marriage that seemed unbreakable had dissolved quietly, agonizingly, and a question that lingered in the minds of all viewers. The last shot after the cameras went off showed vacant houses, undeveloped land, and the silent disappearance of a daughter who had just chosen to turn her back on everything. Was it Kody's partiality for Robyn and her children, the underlying animosity between the wives, or the unwillingness to change when a family began to fall apart? The Browns had survived scandal, betrayal, and public criticism, but nothing could withstand the strain of years of imbalance and silence. Aurora's removal was more than just a void in the room. It was a vacuum, a silence that highlighted every flaw and tension that had been subtly building for years. Perhaps at last, reality caught up with the soap opera they had been watching all along. The ripple effect of Aurora's rebellion echoed throughout the house more than anyone could have ever imagined. Robyn tried to maintain control, but the cracks were too obvious to hide. What had once been simple now had guarded language, deliberate pauses, and an underlying tension of fear. Every word hung in. The atmosphere was heavy with unresolved complaints. The air was like a potential detonator. The other wives had withdrawn from the public eye. Christine was clear and determined. Her sale of her Coyote Pass lot was more than just a financial decision. It was a statement. Janelle, once the voice of reason, had become aloof, her patience, and Meri's quiet. Even among those who remained in the house, the emotional weight was unbearable. Small arguments now turned into hours-long arguments. Minor inconveniences were symbolic of years of neglect and discrimination. The ripple effect of Aurora's departure was evident everywhere. A dinner table where laughter had stopped. Hallways where footsteps were the only sound. And living rooms where the loudest sound was silence. Withdrawal left the room she once filled with warmth and humor eerily empty. Of the episode saw it immediately, and social media was ablaze with rumors. Videos of Aurora missing parties, Robyn crying over empty rooms, and Kody's defensive posture were endlessly analyzed. The meticulously crafted story that had been developing for over 10 years was unraveling before them, and the message was clear. The Browns were not just drifting apart. They were unraveling. Every silence, every withdrawn absence, every unvoiced grievance radiated outward like cracks in glass, ready to fracture the whole family. The children caught in the crossfire. Aurora's departure was only the start. As adults bickered, retreated, and struggled to manage their broken relationships, the kids were left to decipher a world that no longer had order. They weren't mere bystanders, but active participants in a household whose rhythm had been disrupted. School parties became arenas of conflict. Birthdays that used to be celebrations of unity now resembled competitions for attention. Even brief visits between Kody's uneven attention only made matters worse. With Robyn's children, he was present and waiting, while with other wives' children, his availability was sporadic and his focus was short-lived. The contrast was striking, clearly visible even to those who watched from the comfort of their homes, and it confused some kids, infuriated others, and made them all acutely aware of where they stood in the attention hierarchy. Aurora's departure became the symbol, a silent message to her siblings that their life was irretrievably broken. Conversations at the table were no longer just about what to eat or how to spend holidays, and a brother looked into the empty driveway, expecting voices that never came. A holiday meal included laughter, but a child silently tinkled at their plate, invisible among the echoes of what the family once was. Fans witnessed it all. Footage of children sitting apart, lingering glances, and moments of tacit tension were shared as viral talking points. Social media chatter wasn't rumors. Rather, it was a mirror of the emotional reality on screen. With the children caught in the crossfire, helpless but profoundly affected, it was clear that the harm wasn't just emotional but structural. With the family's foundation, once reinforced by shared moments, and Robyn's burden. Robyn was always the glue that kept everything together. The peacekeeper who tried to keep all the threads and pieces together, but after Aurora's departure, the burden became suffocating. The camera saw her attempt to remain calm, but at home, the tension was unbearable. She managed schedules, resolved conflicts, and shielded her kids from the growing cracks, while trying to keep Kody engaged with the rest of the family. Every smile she gave the cameras was a mask that hid fatigue, anxiety, and a sneaky sense of loneliness. The emotional work she did was intense. Disagreements with Kody and the other wives, the unspoken absence of Aurora, and the constant scrutiny from viewers all had an impact. Every time she jumped into a common situation, she depleted her own emotional reserves. Were rougher. No longer reserved, no longer the tactful tone fans had grown accustomed to. She confessed in tears and whispers that she didn't know how long she could keep the family together. "I can't do this by myself anymore and maybe never could," she said, her voice breaking. Even small arguments turned into emotional conflagrations. A casual question about dinner would turn into a heated argument about justice, partiality, and unresolved grievances. Every interaction, every encounter needed more of Robyn than she could ever give regularly, but she persisted for her kids, for the sake of the family's former unity, and at least for the hope that things would somehow be whole again. However, each day revealed the harsh reality. The cracks were too deep, the fractures too wide, and the weight of responsibility too great for any one person to handle. In the end, it was undeniable that Robyn was brave, but even the most courageous stabilizer has limits, and the family's breakdown was Kody's blind spot. For years, Kody believed he was a family's rock, the steady hand that led a plural family through problems, scandals, and the spotlight. But the reality on screen revealed a different story, one of preferential treatment, distance, and missed opportunities for healing. Kody's focus had never been equal, but the disparity was clearly visible after Aurora left. With Robyn and the kids, he was supportive, present, and his involvement with the others was haphazard at best, remote at worst. The difference was stark and obvious, and observers noticed immediately. However, Kody seemed almost unaware of the consequences of his choices, viewing the cracks as external problems, miscommunications, misunderstandings, and his wives' failures to see things his way. He rarely stopped to think about his own role in the breakdown. Truth. He declared a commitment to love, loyalty, and unity as if merely mentioning these qualities would bring them back to life. But love, as the series had been unraveling season after season, was about action, faithfulness, and focusing on areas where it had been sporadic. Disagreements that could have been opportunity for reconciliation turn into finger-pointing. Decisions about the family's future, like Coyote Pass, turn into tools of control rather than cooperation, and even smaller. Gestures, like attending other wives' children's milestones, were marred by inconsistency, leaving emotional scars that no apology could heal. Both fans and critics started to realize the painful truth. Kody wasn't evil, but he couldn't or wouldn't see the consequences of his favoritism. His blind spot wasn't personal. Rather, it was systemic. This flaw had subtly weakened the family's foundation for years. The story had been obvious, and even his good intentions couldn't make up for his absence where it was needed. The public eye. The Brown story had always been told in the bright lights of cameras, but since Aurora's departure, the glare had increased. Viewers scrutinized every frame, every interaction, and every silence. Social media was a magnifying glass, turning microscopic cracks that had been developing for years into gaping, unassailable cracks. The family's breakdown had been inevitable for a long time, and it was largely the result of his failure to fully see the cracks that surrounded him. Media attention surged as entertainment media covered the departures, the land disputes, and the psychological toll on the surviving family members. Every empty seat, every missed milestone, every awkward stare was examined and debated. Repeated montages of Robyn's breakdown, Kody's defensiveness, and Aurora's absence were shown. The audience was no longer just watching reality TV. They were witnessing a family break apart in real time. Favoritism, abandonment, and broken promises were all part of the highly manufactured image that the Browns had built up over a decade. Even the family members' own social media updates were criticized. Their smiling photos were analyzed for signs of tension. Their words of support were interpreted as defensive tactics, and every attempt to play a public role came across as performative, meaningless, and progressively insignificant. The children themselves were made into unwilling actors in this public drama. The public gaze, once used for fame and control over narrative, now acted as an insistent mirror. No cut could remove the visible lack of togetherness, the skewed attention of a father, or the emotional turmoil. Behavior changes, with drawn faces, forced smiles, and moments when they seem to retreat from the camera lens. Social media arguments tended to mirror actual feeling occurring off camera, making the audience fully identify with children placed in the middle. This family's drama is far from over. So if you're #Team Wives, smash like, subscribe for the next explosive update, and leave a comment below. Who do you think will win? Stay shady, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next scandal. Robyn's work was assumed. The bottom line was stark. The Browns' private failure was now a public spectacle. The world wasn't just watching. It was judging, dissecting, and witnessing a family in slow motion collapse.